everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of the SITREP Podcast, the podcast for everything that is related to modern miniatures wargaming. I'm your host, G, and I am excited to be sitting here at the mic again and recording the second episode. It's been a very busy last couple days since we put out the first episode on this past Friday. In the last few days since we are sitting down to record this one, I've had a couple friends message me and were very encouraging. I even got someone who's coming to help me do graphic art design. While I do a little bit, I'm not at the caliber of these fine young people. And Ralph has come on board as our quote-unquote graphic guy. And he's the amazing genius behind the graphics you're seeing on the title page and in the episode pictures that you will see on each listing. Also, there's a couple other people working behind the scenes. We're still working on details, so I'm not going to give away too much on that yet, but I'm looking to bring on a co-host because after a while, only one person can talk so much, and you kind of start running out of things, even though there's so much going on in the world of miniature wargaming. So we're definitely working on that. We're hoping to hear from the guys from some of the more prominent companies, i.e. Matt and Steven from Spectre, and then Tim from Special Artizan Service Miniatures. I've been talking to him over the last few days, and he'll be coming on at some point in one of the episodes to talk about his really nice miniatures and vehicles and things as well. I'm hoping to reach out to our friends in New Zealand from Radio Dish Dash, who do Skirmish Sangin, and talk to them about what's going on in their world. Also, if you've noticed, we've recently started our own Facebook page. It's up, and we've had several people already subscribing. That's very encouraging as well, and we've already had some input into some of the topics we could talk about in our episodes. So one of the ones, Chris mentioned 20 mil and 28 millimeter manufacturers and Kickstarter to help us find some cool miniatures. Well, kind of perusing Kickstarter right now. And I do it quite a bit, actually, all the time, because when I write for the other site, we do a lot of stuff looking into Kickstarter. And one of the things that caught my eye in Kickstarter is the Arabic Printable Tabletop Terrain. And this is by 3D Print Design, or I'm sorry, 3D Print Terrain. And I have, if I'm not mistaken, I believe I have purchased stuff from yes, I did, the Printable Tabletop Terrain Normandy D-Day set. Unfortunately, I haven't had much time recently to print anything on my 3D printers. I actually have 2, and we did get them for Miniature Wargaming. So I've always thought 3D printing was ideal for tabletop wargaming. The amount of stuff that's coming out, I have a couple of companies that I really love. The big one for me right now is PrintableScenery.com. They make amazingly detailed printable terrain. I have some of their Fantasy Village pieces that I have printed up, and they are incredible. But what I really want to talk about today is this Arabic Printable Tabletop Terrain Kickstarter. He's well over his goal. He had a very modest goal of $587. He's right now at $10,506. There's 3 days ago. Now, this is being recorded on Sunday, so this will air on Friday. So, unfortunately, it'll be over by the time you hear this. However, I'm hoping that he will open it up for late backers. If not, you can reach him on their site, and they have some amazing terrain. So what you're seeing in this terrain is a lot of different things like Arabic, houses and apartment buildings and different little items of terrains like water tower silos, air conditioning units, little furniture, satellite dishes, dumpsters, garbage bins. You can make an entire table from what there is on here, and I'll make sure I include a link below in the episode description. There's some amazing, there's a hotel that's up. It's really amazing. There's even one that's battle damaged that would look incredible. They come off in layers, it appears. You can go from floor to floor, so you can do some CQB simulation. Then there's street barriers, and there's obviously some with battle damage. These all can also be scaled if you're not aware. I printed up one of the test pieces for Normandy D-Day. It was one of the houses, and I actually took it from 28 mil and I took it down to 15. So you just need to know the settings. And so you can go any range for scale you want. For CQB and Skirmish, I think 28 mil is an ideal scale. 20 mil works just as well. So that's the nice thing about 3D printing. You can, once you know your settings and you've got your printers dialed in, you can pretty much get any scale you want. I'm just looking through the page here, and there's like this old fort with a battle damage wall section. Just incredible. That'll paint up really nice. He weathered that. It looks really great. Then there's buildings under construction. There's a sky crane. There's pilings that, with the rebar coming out of it for a building under construction. There's a whole Afghan compound, which is really good. If you want to simulate somewhere in the Anwar province or somewhere, and you want to build a whole compound and have to go in there and find Taliban in there. It's looking really good. Then there's some school buildings and shops. And then there's a whole military camp. So you can set up your whole FOB. And they have the barrier walls and watchtowers, and you've got Quonset huts and the other huts, and you got a main building, which could be your mess hall or, the camp headquarters admin. It looks really sharp. They even have porta potties. Yes, you can print yourself a porta potty, or as my friends in England would say, a portaloo. That's pretty cool. And there's gen sets you can print, so you can make it as amazingly detailed as you want. I'm really impressed what I'm seeing here. Just a palace building and destroyed building, so you can, raid a palace, battle damage. They're really looking good. Now, the thing about these is you don't actually get the physical object, obviously. You get a STL file. An STL file is the coded file that your printer needs to be able to print these buildings. Honestly, with the way the development of printers are coming up right now, just about any printer is going to do a remarkable job. Obviously, if you have a smaller printer like the Monoprice MP Mini, you're not going to be able to get one of these big buildings on the build plate, so you have to do it in sections, and I imagine they do have these built into sections, so you just print a section at a time. The downside to 3D printing right now, it's not the cost, and it's not even the cost of the printer, it's time. To print a really good object, it takes time. You have to be patient. You really need to make sure you get your printer dialed in and the build plate dialed in. And then once you've got that, and if you got everything running pretty smooth, there's people that run their printers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they are extremely happy with them. So you just got to make sure that you are dialed in. That's the biggest thing I can tell you about it. Oh, look at this. They even have Hotel Olympic from Black Hawk Down. And they have a couple of Black Hawks, which pains me to no end, crashed. There's one on its side from the co-pilot side, so that'd be the left side. And then there's one that's belly down into rubble. But they have Hotel Olympic. So you could redo Black Hawk Down. It's amazing. It looks good. They got oil derricks, oil wells. They got the pumps and the towers. They've got fuel trucks. They got pipeline. They have an airport tower, which kind of reminds me of, I don't know if anybody's seen the old movie Radon and Entebbe, but it kind of reminds me of that tower. It's really nicely detailed. Like I said, they've got checkpoints, barriers, sandbagged watchtowers, non-sandbagged watchtower. There are so many options here. Okay, they're saying they have a Learjet. You might be able to print your own Learjet. You can use that for missions. A Cessna, that's awesome. Yep, they got a whole oil refinery they're designing. A power plant. Okay, there's a Reaper. You have a Reaper drone, and they have one showing you that it's crashed. So here you go, guys. You can create that scenario where you have to send in a team to recover the camera or data links from a Reaper and destroy it, okay? Now, everybody's like, well, you could just send in an A-10 or a 16, F-15, whatever, and just bomb the heck out of it and destroy it. But what if you need to recover sensitive data or computer components? So there you go. You can have a Reaper crash in the middle of some desolate village, and you have to go in and get it. Just the buildings are amazing. They really are. When you get them all detailed up, it looks really good. And if you really want to, if you want to get really crazy, his first Kickstarter, which was an Arabic Kickstarter, if you pledge an additional 80 euro, what's that, about $100, you can get stuff from the first one. There's a mosque, some Quonset huts, a rural town. It looks amazing with battle damage as well. There's another old fort. Oh, and he has a picture of one painted up. And obviously they're using it for, I'd say, the Afghan rebellion. It looks amazing. Yeah. So that is the Kickstarter that really caught my eye this time. Buildings look great. Like I said, you can create a really nice table. It's just going to take you a little bit of time and patience. Filament these days is not expensive. You can get a kilo spool of filament. That's 2.2 pounds. And you can make some nice buildings out of it. You can get one for $15, $20 a spool. And a building will end up costing you a couple dollars, depending on the size of the building, obviously. It's just a matter of getting the right kind of printer. There are several guys in some of the wargaming groups that do already print stuff with their printers. As far as printers, what kind should you get? That's personal preference and budget. Currently, like I said, I own 2 printers. I own a Mini, and then I own the MP3, I think it is, which has a much larger build plate. I'm still waiting on a Prusa Mark III because it's like the cream of the crop, but I'm really hoping to get an SLA. That's the laser resin printer. I really want one of those because that one prints amazing detail. If you guys have any experience with printing anything wargame related with your printer or know somebody does, drop it in the comments below and we'll see if we can talk about it. If you know anybody who's really passionate or proficient in 3D printing and would like to have them on the show to talk about some opportunities for adding 3D printing terrain or vehicles or miniatures even, let us know. Put them in the notes below and we will definitely talk to them as well. Let's talk about some miniatures. So I told you I've been talking to Tim over at Special Artisan Service Miniatures. He's got a lot of stuff coming out right now in the last month or so. And I thought maybe we could just talk a little bit about that and see what really caught our eye. Just some amazing stuff. Really some amazing stuff. I'm trying to bring up his stuff. His website is actually listed under King's Hobbies and Games. That's where they're selling all his stuff from. He's even got contractors for Benghazi if you wanted to, simulate what happened in Benghazi years back. There's Germans, there's Russian Spetsnaz, you've got SEALs, you've got French Foreign Legion, Special Forces, vehicles. There's the SAS. You got a German commando kayak team. There's ISIS fighters. You got the Polish Grom terrain. So there's a little bit of everything. And like I said, he is working on some really amazing new products. And I'm trying to pull up the page here so we could kind of go through some of these right now to see what he's got going on. It's just really incredible stuff. Ghazi there. Just a little bit of everything. So if you have never been over their website, I suggest you do so. We're going to get Tim on at some point to start talking about his stuff and how we can include his incredible miniatures into our talks and games as well. I think it's just really nice. So that's going to be one of our future companies we'll be talking with. And so I'm looking at comments, and then Carl said, tell us about what game, rules used, figures in your collection, and what you might want to see, etc. Well, let me start with the easiest thing. What I want to see, and I beg everybody I see, even the guys, I'll talk about another company that I do quite a bit of talking with, is I want a good quality Blackhawk, the UH-60 Blackhawk. I'm a former crew chief on a Blackhawk. I love the Blackhawk. It has so much to do with special operations between the Spec Ops model and just the general models. So I'd like to see a really good, high quality kit for a Blackhawk. Now you can go to the model shop and you can buy, a Tamiya or some of the other model companies, their models, but they're not really meant for gameplay. They're kind of fragile. There's a couple die-cast ones. I bought one from the guys over at Miniature Building Authority when they were at Gen Con or Adepticon. I want to say Adepticon. We see them everywhere. And it's a die-cast model. I think it's better scale for 20 millimeter. I picked up a couple of his American Ranger squads in 20 mil, and they're really nice. I'll make sure I link to them as well in the show notes. So I would like to see a really good Blackhawk. I know that there's a company, I think, Tim, did you make a Little Bird? I want to say. I'm trying to look. I know somebody did, and I think it was Tim. Yes, he did. He made the M6 Little Bird. It's a nice kit. Comes with 4 bench riders, 2 pilots, and 4 dismounts. It has rotor blades, can be glued to the rotor if wanted, if you wish. He's also got an Osprey. No kidding. Okay. I don't know. I'm still torn about the Osprey. Obviously, it's now being used in the Air Force and the Marines, and it's been proven, but I have to say that I'm still not sold on it. Call me old-fashioned. Call me a rotor head. I'm good with that, but I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, so he does have the MH6 Little Bird. You can obviously use that in your Black Hawk Down scenario, so you can use them in any scenario. It's an amazing little helicopter. It's very fast. It's agile. It's not very survivable in heavy combat. If it takes fire, they can go down, but they're very agile and they move fast. So if you guys have never tried hitting at a fast-moving target, it's not as easy as it makes it look. What happens when helicopters go down, it's usually when they're in close combat and they're slowed down to either get into a fire observation position or they're landing. So that's the biggest thing you see in the Black Hawk Down movies, which oversimplified it, but guys took an RPG to the tail rotor. And if you're not aware what a tail rotor's purpose for is to counteract the torque of the main rotor blade. So if you didn't have that, you would have torque and your helicopter would spin. So that prevents that. So when that takes it out, it makes it really hard to fly. And so it's one of those things. So the Little Bird has an amazing job. It goes in fast. It can put a couple guys on a roof somewhere or over small terrain or even on a ship, which leads me to something else I want to talk about. So that's the first thing I want to see. Good quality Black Hawk. Heck, I'd like to see a good Chinook. You've got your M model Chinooks. They're special operations Chinooks. Unfortunately, Operation Red Wing comes to mind, but you can use a really good Chinook to do some inserts through ladder ropes or fast roping. I do that with the Black Hawk as well. Good fast rope. To answer Carl's other question, what rules do I use? Well, I own the Spectre operations rules, which I think are very well laid out. I know a few people have had a couple little comments here and there, but guys, come on now. This is their first real crack at a formal rule book, and I think they did an amazing job. They really take into account realism and balance it with fun and fast gameplay. So they did a really good job on that. It does take a while to get into the game, but I think it flows smoothly. And, once you've played a few games and get them under your hat, it does an amazing job. I have Spectre Ops. That seems to be the go-to right now. Just because you can get in, you can play with a few models, and it's fast. It's easy to play, but it's not easy to master, okay? It gives everybody the opportunity to play really great or really bad, depending on how you strategize and how you troop move and use stealth and weapons. And you can make it as realistic as you want, or you can just make it fast and loose. Right now, number one on the list, second rule set that I use currently is Skirmish Sangin. I have the original rule set. I have the Rangers, Day of the Rangers. That's the Black Hawk Down version. And then I have their latest one that they sent me, which was the campaign in Africa. I have the Skirmish Sangin battle book. I always butcher this, and I apologize. Malinini Rangers, Day of the Rangers. I know Colin is going to kill me. Sorry about that, Colin. But this was the one that's based on Mogadishu, and it's really nice. I don't know if a lot of you are familiar with Skirmish Sangin, but it's a very good game. It's a little more in-depth when it comes to stats. It does play well. Once you get into the system, it does play pretty well, and it's very detailed. You can really get into it. You really get to the point where you're creating your own characters. There's a little bit of if you will, an RPG aspect to it. You really get to own the characters, okay? You really can create personalities for your guys. And I love this edition because there's a whole section dedicated to helicopters, which I find awesome. So I truly love this. Anytime I can put helicopters into my gameplay and you can fast rope in, it's really good. It's a really good game. If you guys have not tried Skirmish Sangin, I would definitely give it an opportunity to play. Like I said, there's a little bit more math involved in the game, just based on details and how things go, but it is really a solid game. I would like to see it get more gameplay, to be honest with you. And that leads me to another thing that I would like to talk to you about, and that's being an ambassador for your game system. Spectre has been coming on full force, but here in the U.S., at least in my area, I know there are pockets where it's played, but it's not like played openly. Some of the game stores, I'd love to see it. And I'm wondering if you guys have a strong group of gamers who are playing modern war games, whether it's Spectre or Skirmish Sangin or Force on Force. That's another rule set I have there, Carl. There's a couple other smaller rule sets you can find on War Games, the site where you can download war games. There's a lot of different ones out there. Carl also asked, what figures do I have in my collection? Well, I've got the Spectre SAS Jungle. I really like those. I've got quite a bit of Rangers and Delta from Skirmish Sangin, and I've got quite a bit of Rangers and Modern Infantry from the guys over at Miniature Building Authority. I am going to be getting my hands on some of the stuff from Tim over at Special Artisan Service Miniatures. I'm going to put an order in with him and look at those. I have my razors for Spectre that I have to put together that I got last year at UK Games Expo when we were there recovering that. They're a really nice kits. I've looked at them. I've looked how I'm going to put them together and all that. And then, like I talked about in last week's episode, Spectre also came out with their Humvees. Those look to be really solid. I hopefully will grab one or two of those in the future. And I want to get a whole set of the SEAL team, the dev crew. That's SEAL Team 6. And look at those guys and those together. And so that's pretty much what I play. I do a hodgepodge of stuff. The problem with me is I don't get anywhere near the time I want because there are other companies out there that have amazing miniatures. And this goes back to Chris's comment about other companies. Empress Miniatures has some beautiful modern combat ones. I have their rule set. We don't want to slam any company or miniature here. We want to be fair, but we want to be honest. And we want to make sure that we give an accurate representation. I ordered their rule set Danger Close when it first came out, and I was pretty excited for it. It is a very, very, very basic rule set. It's literally two-sided piece of paper laminated. It is a D20 system. I have yet to play it, to be honest with you. I was kind of, I don't want to say disappointed, but I was kind of underwhelmed when I got it because I'm like, okay, it sounded like a really good rule set, and all of a sudden I get a two-sided piece of paper laminated. But I want to be fair. I want to be open, and I want to give it a shot. If anybody out there has played the Danger Close rules, I would love to hear from you as to what your opinion of it is. Again, I will put a link down below for you. But I'll tell you what, their miniatures are amazing. They have really good miniatures as well. I'm just looking through here. I'm going to start at the SAS in British territory. They're all white pewter, white metal. They have a nice mixture of weapons and uniforms. So like here, you got guys wearing baseball hats, boonie hats. They're carrying, looks like MP4s. One looks like he's carrying a saw, just different ones, radios. So there's just so much there. You've got them on quads. It's nice to see their variety. I know they do a really nice job. I'm hoping to get some of their stuff in as well. They have American Army. They have Marines. They have an EOD team, which I think is just really, really good. Bomb suit, the whole 9 yards. You got your bomb suit and you got your Overwatch guys, your squad or section leader. I have a family member who's an EOD, and it's one of those ones on my list to get a really good EOD mini and paint it up and give it to them when I see them. So they have just a really, really good selection. Another company that has good miniatures, I'm trying to find it, is Eureka. Eureka is another one that has some really good moderns. Sometimes you gotta look for them though, but they are there. Let's see, range. Where are you? Eureka Miniatures. Browse by period. Okay, 28s. So, sorry, it's taking a little bit here. There we go, moderns. Sometimes the computer wants to run a little slow, but they've got, Milan launchers. They've got one of my most preferred weapons, and that would be the 40 millimeter automatic grenade launcher or the Mark 19, or its modern counterpart, the Mark 47. If you've never fired a Mark 19, you are missing out. There's nothing more satisfying than a thump, 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 thump. That just spitting those 40 millimeter grenades downrange. It's very satisfying. So I particularly like it a lot. So Eureka Miniatures, there's another one. They've got guys that have Law rocket launchers, you got Stingers. You got guys in mop gear from the 80s. If you've never rucksacked in mop gear, you have missed out. It's a good way to lose weight. They got Marine Force Recon snipers using a Barrett 50 cal. That's pretty impressive. I think what I'd like to do in a future episode is get similar miniatures from each of the ranges from the different companies and just kind of do a comparison as to detail, size, and go from there. Again, each company has its pluses and minuses, and just nice thing about them, if you get them close in detail and scale, you can intermix so you can get a nice variety of a force. So Eureka Miniatures is another good one. Other than that pretty much covers that for those two observations. So another thing I want to talk to you about is scenery. What do you do for your table? How do you dress it up? Do you go very simple? Just throw a couple little buildings or boxes and some trees from a hobby shop or, railroad shop and some green felt down? Or do you go all out and have a really nice table that's formed and you just really do up a number? Do you think it adds or hinders to the gameplay experience? I've talked to a couple people and they like a more simple open table because they feel that it just makes things much more easier to play on. And then you got people who really want to get into the middle of it and really want to feel the reality, the grittiness of a game. I can tell you I was at a small game convention and I came across the guys from Miniature Building Authority, and he had a table set up for his modern rule set, which I don't think he's published, which I think is a darn shame because it was a really fun game. I'll put a link into Miniature Building Authority. I know he puts it under a separate company, and I'm trying to remember what it is. I will have to reach out to him and remember what it is. But he makes excellent resin buildings for your moderns. They are really nice. I'm looking at his site now. Now he says these are 28 mil. I thought they were 20, but I could be wrong. No, they are 28 mil. I thought they were 20s. My bad. I apologize. So it is just an amazing company. I'm going to have to see if I can convince him into posting his rule set. Basically what happened is I played a modern U.S. Army team in some place. It could have been Iraq, it could have been Afghanistan, it could have been anywhere. It was a small city, large village, if you will. And what we had to do is I had to take my unit down the main street, if you will, and get to the police department who had a high value target, a terrorist, in their jail. And we needed to go get them, secure them, and transport them out. I was playing the Americans, doing the transport team, and he was playing the, obviously, like Al-Qaeda or ISIS or any of those bad guys. So I had to maneuver down and taking fire. I had a few vehicles. He makes some really nice vehicles as well. They're really nice. Basically what happened was taking fire left and right. I started putting people in the buildings up high. I got high ground. I started hitting on any targets of opportunity I could find, at least putting fire into them. It was a really good game, and the rule set played smoothly. We had a really good time. I just thought it was really well done. It was a game you could play with just about anybody. It was easy to pick up. The game mechanics were clean, and it was really good. I will try and track down that game as well. So another subject is, how you design terrain for your tabletop. Is that I have a friend who creates MDF terrain, and he's looking to get into modern ranges. So he was asking me what are some ideas that would draw some people in. I said, you got to have something that's a showstopper. You've got to have something that when somebody's at a convention or at a game store and they walk by a table, they stop in their tracks and they go, wow, that is awesome. How do I get that, or how I want to play on that? We've been going back and forth on some different things that I consider really showpiece terrain items. I don't want to give away details because we're still in the design process, and I think the ideas we come up with are going to be pretty impressive, multi-level, in an environment that maybe not all Spec Ops teams could play on or do battle on, but I think there's enough variety there that will make people go, that is really cool, and maybe highlight some other units' abilities and tactics that up to this point really haven't been showcased a lot. We thought this would be a really good time to sit down and design these items, and the challenge is to get them to the right scale. For me, is to design them for playability. You can make some really great looking terrain, but if you can't play on it, can't play the games that you want to play on it, then what's the point? Now you just have a model. So we're trying to come up with playable terrain pieces that are showstoppers. Really nice detail. But the other thing is they're going going to be big. They're going to be big pieces, but we want to make sure that they're affordable. Nothing worse than having some terrain that you only use once or twice and you're paying an arm and leg for. So you want good quality terrain. It's going to be MDF, maybe some acrylic in there. I don't know. We'll have to see how that pans out. Multi-level playing surfaces. I think it's going to be quite interesting. It's a big challenge as we get closer to finalization of concept. Maybe I can get him on to talk about it. I can tell you the name of the company. It's Impudent Mortal Designs. They do some really great MDF terrain, a lot of fantasy stuff, and they did some World War II ranges. They do some simpler stuff that gets you a lot of terrain on a table quickly, and then they have some really nice detailed ones as well. Their industrial range is really impressive. I know we have some that go really well with the Batman Miniatures game of all games. Heck, you might even be able to use them in a industrial setting. Maybe have a team go in, take out some terrorists that might be trying to build a dirty bomb. There is another option as well. It's one of those things that Walt over at Impudent Mortal is really trying to open up his customer base to include other genres other than the typical fantasy and sci-fi ranges. And so he's like, modern. I'm like, I'm all about modern, obviously, and this would be a really good one to have. Did talk about it, and like I said, we're in the process of coming up with some concepts, and his challenge is making it look good, which he'll do that part, but making sure that it's playable so you can move and have fields of fire, you have choke points, you have ways to move and not always get bogged down in one section. So that's the challenge. It's not just, hey, let's throw this up and go with that. I'm really looking forward to that project. It'll be a project that we all can really appreciate, and hopefully will be showcase pieces like we hope they will be. So anytime you can be involved in anything to help expand your hobby is really great. Also, I'd like to hear more from you guys. A couple of thoughts, since this is only our second episode. One of them would be, what do you think would be the ideal length for this podcast? First one was roughly 30 minutes. This one's going to end up being somewhere between 45 to an hour. Definitely never more than 1 hour. I think that's just way too long. And we want to make sure we're just not grasping for material. We want it to be a good quality program. More importantly, we want it to be interactive. We want to get people participating in it. If at any point in time you feel you have something worthwhile to contribute to the show, we definitely want to hear from you. And we want to get you on the show or track down the people that you want us to know about and get them on the show. At some point, we're going to explore the option of doing a live show, having everybody broadcast live and get audience participation. You could call in to talk about some of the subject. It's really one of those things that we're really excited about the growth of the show. I think the future looks really good for us. We definitely, again, we want to hear from you. Spread the word, get other people involved. If you've got tournaments going on or projects, reach out to us and we'll make sure we mention them during the podcast. At some point, we're going to want to see your terrain and your painting. There's really good Facebook pages already, the Modern Miniature Wargaming and then the Spectre one, so they do a really good job. I peruse those and I'll pull some out and say, hey, this looks really great, and highlight those as well. We want this to be your podcast. We want this to be something that you can feel like you've got some ownership in and that you can participate in. And we want you to look forward to every week. We do want to reach out and ask for your help in that we're always looking for ideas. I can sit here through my weekly perusal of the different websites, but sometimes I can't cover all or I forget something. So if you can drop comments in the below for us or on the Facebook page, that would be a tremendous help. And we will definitely discuss those on future episodes. Like I said, we're looking for a co-host. I've got a couple people that might be interested in participating on an occasion. I don't know how much their schedules allow them to do at this point. So we may have rotating co-hosts, which would be great. If any of you listening are thinking about wanting to participate in the podcast as a co-host at some point, we would definitely be interested in talking with you as well. It's been a heck of a last few days, and we're really excited about where we're heading for the future. Lastly, there's something going on in Thailand that I know you all have been aware of, and as I record this, they're in the process of rescuing these boys, these 12 to 15-year-old boys, and their soccer coach from a cave in Thailand. While I bring it up, it's amazing because there are people from all over the world who've come together to try and rescue these children in this coach. There are Thai Navy SEALs. There are U.S. military advisors. I can only imagine that there's probably some Navy divers there, as well as the British cave divers that located the boys initially. I think it's an amazing thing, and it's something that you can think about when you want to come up with a scenario. So does it have to be a hunt and kill scenario, or can it be a peacekeeping mission or humanitarian mission like this? Something to keep in mind. We don't have to be stuck in the same scenario over and over again trying to come up with a way of taking out the baddies. Sometimes the baddies can be Mother Nature. Hurricane Katrina hit. Groups from all over the country in the United States came together. My aviation company went down and flew missions. The Coast Guard obviously came in. So there are more ways to play modern miniature wargaming than actually combat. It's an interesting twist. Something to think about. Could you come up with a scenario where you could use your SEAL team or a team in a humanitarian mission? Now, I'll be truthful. A-teams were designed as unconventional warfare. Their true goal is to insert into a country a 12-man team and teach the native people of that country how to survive in war. Part of that is humanitarian. They bring in medical supplies. They provide medical treatment. They show them how sanitation and construction techniques. They not only go in there and do all those awesome things you see in the movies and read about in the books and see on the news. They actually do a lot behind the scenes, just teaching people how to live and survive in a very challenging environment. While that may not sound very exciting for gameplay, that is truly what some of the special forces, the U.S. Special Forces, do. Kind of look at it this way. You could have your A-team inserted. They're teaching a mountain village how to improve their lifestyle, and in turn, those mountain people could provide you with intel. They could provide you with extra warriors to fight off the enemy. Classic Vietnam scenario there with the Montagnards and the special forces in the Highlands. There's quite a bit of variety that can be achieved in modern wargaming outside of the old just let's go hunt and kill the bad guy. I would like to hear your idea for a scenario. I'd like to see what you have in mind and see if there's something that, wow, that would really be an awesome day on the table. So a lot of it has to be objective driven, and it would be really cool to see, okay, we found a weapon stash that we wouldn't have known about if we hadn't done this with these people. Put your comments in and let's hear your ideas. We'd like to see, maybe we can try some down the road and do a quick battle report or something on it. Let us know if you think battle reports is something you would like us to do. I'm not saying we would do a full video battle report. I already do that on other avenues, but I was thinking maybe a summation of, hey, this is what we did, this is how it turned out. Because remember, we want to keep this as a podcast so you can listen to it while you're painting or modeling or what have you. We don't want to pull your attention away from other activities so you're stuck in front of a TV or computer. We want you to be able to enjoy your hobby while listening to some background and maybe get some more information. With that in mind, we're coming up to the end of episode number 2. Again, we want to thank Ralph for our graphics. We want to thank a couple other people, Chris and Tim, for some input, and we look forward to hearing from many more of you in the future episodes and in future days. Please keep the chat going, and then until the next time, again, we'll be airing every Friday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So until the next time, again, this is G, and we're going to RTB, and we'll see you.